Hi, this is John MacPherson from SoHo Journal Online, aka SoHo News Online, and this is Andrew Berman, who is the director of the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation. He was kind enough to meet with us today to give us a little bit of a lowdown as to what is going on in terms of zoning, especially as affecting SoHo. And could you tell us something about what it is in the process?
Sure. Well, for a long time, neighborhood groups have been clamoring for a change in the zoning, particularly in the Hudson Square area, where that odious Trump SoHo hotel.
It's really Hudson Square, isn't it?
Yeah, in the Hudson Square area, exactly. You know, about, I guess it's almost 4 years ago now, when word of that first came up to light, you know, we heard from the city and the city council that it was their opinion that the building was as of right under the zoning. We disagreed, a lot of other people disagreed about that, but that they would be open to considering changing the zoning in the future so that more of these wouldn't happen. You know, we would have liked them, and we pushed them to actually enforce what we thought was the existing zoning to prevent Trump SoHo from being built as is. They refused to do that, but we did want them to keep their word that they would look into changing the zoning to prevent more of these from happening. Well, 3.5 years later, nothing. There's been a lot of conversations from the city about, well, let's hear what people want, let's see what Trinity is looking at doing, but there's been no change there whatsoever. And the one thing that everybody agrees on is that the current zoning does allow 45-story buildings, which is ridiculous for that area.
Right.
And so that's desperately in need of a change. In other areas, east of 6th Avenue, that area is west of 6th Avenue, we've certainly talked about trying to get some changes in the zoning to make sure that development there is contextual. It's a much, much, much smaller scale.
Could you explain contextual for any of our viewers?
Sure. Well, contextual, you know, in the general sense, of course, means keeping in context with what's around you, relating to your surroundings. Specifically in terms of zoning, there are two types of zoning in New York City, two broad categories, non-contextual and contextual. Contextual zoning has height limits and specific building envelopes that it requires that are supposed to more closely match the scale of the buildings around them. That part of SoHo east of 6th Avenue doesn't have contextual zoning, although it has a very, very strong context. It's not so easy to do contextual zoning if you have a neighborhood that has vastly different scales of buildings, but a neighborhood like that, where almost everything is no more than 5 stories tall, is perfect for contextual zoning. And we've, for many years now, pushed the city to consider that and haven't gotten very far. We'd also love to see some changes in the zonings that it doesn't allow the scale of billboards that it does, which of course is a huge problem in that area.
Absolutely.
Proliferating more and more every day. There is, the final thing is that there is a proposal from a developer right now for a small change in the zoning on Sullivan Street between Spring and Broome, which we and many others in the community have been fighting because it's not a positive change in the zoning. It's a change that would allow more slightly larger buildings and more bigger commercial spaces on a side street that for the most part is just has some very small mom and pop grandfathered stores there. And this would allow a much larger scale of stores, you know, sort of bigger, drawing more people, you know, not the sort of little stores, but big ones that would set a bad precedent.
If the viewers wanted to try to contact any of the politicians, if they want to do that, who would be helpful or be able to be helpful to this effort?
Well, obviously the mayor. You know, I'm not sure how closely he listens to things on, you know, quite the scale of things. The mayor's Department of City Planning is the agency that's really in charge of it.
Who's in charge of that?
That Amanda Burden is the director and the chair of the City Planning Commission, and also City Council member and Speaker Quinn, who represents the area. Any zoning change has to be approved by both the City Planning Commission and the City Council. So those are really the two main arms there, both of which in the past expressed an openness to seeing that Hudson Square change take place, but again, no tangible progress at all.
Well, we really appreciate this. The other thing that, of course, you know that we've discussed many, many times, not necessarily with you, has been the billboards downtown, which has changed an arts community into essentially Times Square. Is there anything that can be done to foster a change there, since I believe there were legal changes that took place in the city council for violations of that sort? Mm-hmm. Is there any other effort that anyone can make and to try to change that?
Right. Well, there's two things. One is enforcing the provisions that are there. Some of the billboards that we see downtown don't conform to the zoning, and if we can get the city to enforce the law, we can either get rid of them or force them to reduce the size. The zoning for most of SoHo and Hudson Square, though, does allow fairly substantially sized billboards. So the other key thing would be to get the zoning changed so that it wasn't allowed. Because if the law says that they're allowed, there's nothing you can do about getting the city to enforce it. Enforcement won't make a difference if the law says that they are allowable. So there's some of them that go even beyond the generous allowances that the zoning already gives, and those we need to push the city to enforce. But a change in the zoning would be good. It's a really outdated aspect of the zoning. You know, it relates to when this was you know, an entirely manufacturing district. And interestingly, then there weren't that many billboards. Now that it's become much more residential with a commercial mix, etc., all of a sudden now there's this enormous proliferation of billboards, and it really it does undermine the character of the area tremendously. So those are the two things we really need to do.
If anyone wants to contact you about information regarding these issues, how would they be in touch with you?
Oh, please do. Go to our website, www.gvshp.org. You can call us here at the office, 212-475-9585, extension 38, and we're always happy to hear from the public. They tip us off to what's going on. They're our eyes on the street, so please don't hesitate to get in touch with us.
Well, thank you very much, and this is SoHo News Online, and feel free to get in touch with us as well. And thank you very much.